Next time you have a battle that you think you're really going to lose, put Uriah in the front of the battle at the heaviest point of action, and then everyone else, when you say charge, everybody else back up. So Joab wasn't too happy because Uriah was one of his best men. He says, but that's the king's word. So Uriah goes out and the others go out and somebody yells charge and Uriah goes forward and he goes, guys, nobody's there. And he's hit by arrows, and Joab sends back a notice saying, we lost the battle today, and your servant, your top guy, Uriah, was killed in battle. David folds it up, has Bathsheba brought over, says, I'm so sorry your husband passed away, and I feel bad for you. I kind of feel responsible. Why don't you come, and since we're having a baby anyway, be my wife. So, happily ever after. And they're there, and it's almost time for the baby. Well, the baby is born. And the prophet comes by. His name is Nathan. Nathan comes in, and Nathan says, King, I hate to bother you, but I have a really bad incident that happened in the kingdom. And David says, what is it? He says, well, there was this rich guy, and he had like tons of sheep. Big-time shepherd. He had all these shepherds under him. He owned a lot of land, and right next to him was this little shack, and this one poor little guy that had one lamb. He had one little lamb, little girl lamb, ewe lamb they call it. And he said that lamb, it was his pet. It wasn't even a lamb like for product, it was just his pet. And he said the lamb would eat from his dish. The lamb would he'd sleep in his arms. The lamb was with him at all times. And David says, oh, go on, what's the point here? He said, well, there was a party that the rich guy was having that had all those sheep. And it came time for the meal, and the rich guy says, don't use any of my sheep. Go next door, take the sheep from that poor guy. He's got that one little sheep. It's time for that sheep to be eaten anyway. So they grab the sheep from the poor guy, and they kill the sheep and have a big party. David stops. He says, stop right there. I want that man. That man isn't even, death is too easy for him. He needs to be really punished, big time, first, and then executed. He says, who is he? And Nathan the prophet, standing before the king, he says, he points at King David, and he says, thou art the man. And David's immediate response was, I have sinned against the Lord. Now, he sinned against a lot of people, but he sinned against the Lord because he was the king. He was responsible. He should have been the leader. And David in this psalm deals with his repentance from what he has done. And we're going to look at 6 things quickly that we can benefit from when we sin, because we all sin. David did 2 big ones, murder and adultery. I was counseling a person, and we were at a restaurant. It was open area, and a person came by and said, aren't you Mr. Vandermeer? And I said, yes. He said, oh, I had you like, he was 43. I had you a long time ago in school at Hoover High School, 1985. And he said, oh, you know, I really appreciate it. I remember you and everything, and you made a lot of nice comments. Then I said, what? I said, do you go to church? And he says, oh, I wouldn't be welcome because I was in the war. I was in the war, and said I did things I don't feel very proud of, so I could never go to church. I would disgrace. If I came to your church, I would be a disgrace. And he felt very guilty. Seemed like a very nice person. And very personable, but he has guilt. And I said, give me your phone number, because I was talking to someone else. And I've called him, I haven't gotten an answer yet, but he did give me his phone number. But there's a lot of people walking around with guilt today. David, all of a sudden, had a lot of guilt. David realized he'd done a lot. Maybe some of us say, wow, you know, there's something I did back there, wow, it disqualifies me from everything. That's what Psalm 51 is about. David shares his victory over sin with us so that we can benefit, not revel in his defeats, but understand and learn from his success in repentance. Our first thought is we must focus right away on God's love, not on our sin. Look at verse 1. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Notice he's focusing on God, not on how bad he is, which is what this fellow that came up to me, he focused all of a sudden after saying nice things. He says, but I am this. I would never be welcome in a church. God hates me. That's basically what he said. This is not, we don't see that here. David doesn't say, oh, I know, God, you hate me because I'm so wicked and I was the king, you appointed me king, you did all these wonderful things for me, and look at how I've treated you. That's not there. In fact, look at that verse 1. Go down to the words loving kindness. You say, that's a funny word. Well, you know what it is? It's our attempt in English to translate an untranslatable word. The word in Hebrew, and I would assume in most of the languages of the Middle East, is chesed. Don't say that if you have a sore throat. It means it's God's love. It's what drove Jesus to the cross. It's what caused the Father to send the Son to the cross. It's a love that is so powerful that we not only can't translate the word, we can't fully understand the concept, because we could never do that. You know, I'm sure many a mother or many a father, if they saw their child in danger on a railroad track, they would push the child aside and happily be run over by the train. But God's love goes even beyond that, because not only that, he takes our sin and then is run over by the train. Except he was on a cross. He takes our sin. So that's loving kindness. We come close to it in putting two words, love and kindness. And in other places it says favor. It's translated favor or something else such as that. But it's so hard to understand because it only belongs to God. It's that ultimate love. He says, blot out my transgressions. See, David can say that because he knew who God is. David knew God really well. David was called a man after God's own heart. Now, we say, oh, I did something wrong. I can expect a thunderbolt coming my way any time. Well, that's Thor, the god of Scandinavians. That's not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible isn't holding a bunch of thunderbolts, throwing them at you every time you do something wrong. No, the God of the Bible is the one that David understood. And he says, according to your loving kindness, he says, you are going to handle this. I'm submitting to you. I've done this wrong thing, but now I call upon you. You know, I often tell young people that are thinking of doing something illegal, I said, you know, you fall into the hands of the police or the courts, you're going to maybe not find a merciful judge. You're maybe not going to find a policeman that says, well, that's okay. No, you pull out, you think it's cute to take out a little thing that looks like a toy gun and go bang, bang, policeman. He may not say, oh, what a cute little kid. He may just automatically do what he's been trained to do. And you're gone. That happened up here in La Crescenta High School. There was a party, graduate, one boy was a football player, and they were making a lot of noise, and a neighbor called and complained. And the boy opened the door, this police girl was standing at the door, policewoman, and he goes, oh, what a cute gun you have. And he goes to reach for the gun, she reached up, shot him dead. And he was drunk. He was drunk. But you can't say, well, now that'll teach you, because he was dead. You know, he learned a lesson, but it was a lesson for everybody else, not for him. And that's sad. God is not that way.